Hello, I'm Keek, and welcome to Countdown to Catastrophe, where I explore the historical processes that brought us to our present-day predicament. Today, I'm looking at why history happens, focusing in on the American Revolution. So there are two very important schools of thought, and they're called materialism and idealism. Idealism says that history moves because of ideas. It's ideas that shape material conditions. The materialists, on the other end, Marx and Engels, most famous among them, argue the opposite, that it's material conditions that shape ideas. Engels wrote that historical materialism starts from the proposition that the production of the means to support human life, and next to production, the exchange of things produced, is the basis of all social structure. That in every society that has appeared in history, the manner in which wealth is distributed and society divided into classes or orders is dependent upon what is produced, how it is produced, and how the products are exchanged. From this point of view, the final causes of all social changes and political revolutions are to be sought not in men's brains, not in men's better insights into eternal truth and justice, but in changes in the modes of production and exchange. So who's right? As anarchist Mikhail Bakunin put it, undoubtedly the idealists are wrong and the materialists right. Yes, facts are before ideas. Yes, the ideal is but a flower whose root lies in the material conditions of existence. Anarchists are just way better at writing than everyone else. In school, you probably learned the idealist interpretation of the American Revolution. I was taught that the revolution was about two competing ideals, monarchy versus democracy. That disagreement manifested as the call for no taxation without representation, repressive acts such as the Boston Massacre. Eventually, there was a popular revolution motivated by these democratic ideals that led to the creation of the world's first representative democracy. According to historian Robert Calhoun, support for the revolution was only about 40 to 45%. In a letter, John Adams estimated that 1/3 of the colonists were loyalists. Meanwhile, historian John Shai estimated that half the colonists were dubious, afraid, uncertain, indecisive, many of whom felt that there was nothing at stake that could justify involving themselves and their families in extreme hazard and suffering. Most in the 13 colonies simply didn't have a say. Women, indigenous people, the enslaved population, indentured servants. Not to mention, the founding fathers who were pushing revolution didn't have democracy, as we might understand it, as an ideal. William Jay, in his biography of his father John Jay, wrote that his favorite maxim was, quote, "Those who own the country ought to govern it." In Federalist Paper number 10, James Madison wrote, "Among the numerous advantages promised by a well-constructed union, none deserves to be more accurately developed than its tendency to break and control the violence of faction." Madison identifies the most common and durable source of factions as the various and unequal distribution of property. Those who hold and those who are without property have ever formed distinct interests in society. Instead of trying to construct a society where these factions don't break out, maybe make everyone a property owner or nobody a property owner. Madison outlines a way in which government can protect that property minority. Understanding the American Revolution through the materialist perspective has way fewer gaps. The materialists would say the revolution was the product of the capitalism in the 13 colonies outgrowing its colonial status. Slavery, of course, played a huge role in this. In Britain, there was a growing discontent surrounding slavery by the second half of the 18th century. Historian Gerald Horne gives a lot of credence to the 1772 Somerset case, where Lord Mansfield argues that the institution of slavery is really on the way out. A writer in the Virginia Gazette responded, quote, "Can any human law abrogate the divine? The laws of nature are the laws of God." Horne then quotes a contemporary in Manhattan who says that the end of slavery would occasion a greater ferment in America than the Stamp Act itself. Accumulation and indigenous genocide also had to do with the revolution. In 1763, Britain outlawed further expansion westward. Not long after, in the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson accuses the British of inciting indigenous tribes to commit violence against settlers. The Declaration of Independence reads that the British Empire, quote, has excited domestic insurrection amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. Crazy that this is literally in the Declaration of Independence. Historian Herbert Atficker notes, positioning himself explicitly as a historical materialist, the American Revolution was not just a story of competing interests, but rather capitalism affecting all things created a fundamental societal incompatibility between the British Empire and the 13 colonies. Southern planters were engaged in an unequal trade balance with British merchants, leading to Thomas Jefferson to angrily write, "These debts that had become hereditary from father to son for many generations, so that the planters were species of property annexed to certain mercantile houses in London."
This country was founded by slave owners who wanted to be free.
Come on. Noting the trade balance for the first 70 years of the 18th century, Atficker writes that it, quote, totaled about 20 million pounds, a colossal indirect tax and a significant source of the wealth of the British ruling class. The British, of course, imposed the Trade Acts, which produced thousands and thousands of pounds of revenue for the British every single year. Like we noted, the Tea and Stamp Acts are harped on in sort of mainstream accounts of the American Revolution as an ideological split. No taxation without representation. But actually, what it was an economic dispute. So this is why the American Revolution happened. And this is why history more broadly progresses. In the next episode, we're going to look more closely at that system that the American Revolution created. If you'd like to learn about that system that was created after the American Revolution, then you should like, comment, and subscribe for more content, and so that publishers will look twice at my book. Good?
Good, great stuff.